Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new. Listen, today we're going to be talking about something very serious, and I want you to pay attention, stay with me until the end, because I know that this is going to be a very valuable video, because I'm going to be talking about something that no one talks about. No one told you this, and I'm going to open up a whole new perspective for you that after watching this video, you're going to end up with a whole new perspective to look at things, and hopefully you're going to be able to fix the fear problem today. By the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel because this is going to help me make more videos like this in the future. I know that a lot of you who are watching are unsubscribed, and if you just hit that subscribe button, it's going to help a lot. So go ahead and do it right now if you can. Let's cut to the chase. A lot of you come to me for advice and you're like, I get stuck. I am so anxious before I have to speak English, or I get overwhelmed easily. I forget the topic and I start rambling, or I add unnecessary words, or simply I avoid every conversation that I have in English. And this is a very common problem for a lot of you. So when you come to me for help, you're like, for example, if you're struggling with vocabulary, like you get stuck, you can't remember the words, you're like, I don't know why this happens. Like when I'm speaking at home or when I'm speaking to someone I know, everything's fine. But when I'm under pressure, when I'm with other people, when I'm in public, I'm like a whole different person and I don't know why this happens and I get stuck and all these things. And when we work together, there are a few things that I notice, and the problem is almost never in the vocabulary part. So you come to me asking me to teach you more vocabulary because you think that's going to solve the problem, when in fact, the problem is much deeper. Or you come to me with accent or pronunciation problem. When we work together, we uncover that the problem is much deeper. Or you come to me wanting more grammar. We understand the problem is much deeper. So, moral of the story, the problem is always much deeper than the surface level that you've been fed by the teaching industry. And today we're talking about it, and I'm going to tell you why this happens. Let's be real, guys. You already know English. If you watch this video, if you understand 80% or more of what I'm saying, you're fluent. If you can talk to people, if you can hold conversations, you're fluent. Okay, I need you to understand this very clearly. So you either watch videos, you watch podcasts, you can even think in English sometimes. You don't need to learn more. What you need is to activate what you already know, but that's for a whole other video. We're going to talk about activation. We're going to talk about what I do in my programs. That's for another thing. Today we need to understand why is it that we're afraid? Why is the moment that you have to speak, suddenly something shifts in your brain and your brain just shuts down. Your brain is like, no, not going to be talking today, not going to be thinking today. And it just goes blank. Like nothing comes into your brain. And then you also get the physical manifestations, like your heart starts racing, your anxiety kind of like pops up out of nowhere, your palms are sweating, and you put yourself into this fight or flight mode. So you either speak because you have to, and then it's a disaster, or you simply avoid speaking altogether. And let me tell you, it's not because of your vocabulary. It's not because of your accent, pronunciation. It's not because of your grammar. It's not because you're not the best or you don't have the best English. And now I'm going to tell you why it is. It's because your brain sees speaking English as a threat. I'm going to repeat this. Your brain sees speaking English as a threat. And until you rewire that and change it in here, no amount of grammar, no amount of advanced vocabulary is going to change that for you. So by this point, you already realized that this is a psychological challenge. So allow me to break down the exact psychological reasons why this happens and help you understand better how to never again be afraid when speaking English in public. Let's go. Now, first, let me get something straight, and I really need you to understand this. Your fear of speaking English is not a language problem. It's not an English problem. So we need to remove that from our mind. It's a survival instinct. Your fear of speaking English, it's a survival instinct. And this survival instinct is your biggest friend, if you ask me. Your brain is not trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you. So your brain evolved to prioritize social survival. Now, if you go back to time, if we go back to the beginnings of time, actually, thousands of years ago, if you got rejected from your tribe, talking thousands of years ago, that was a death sentence. That was a death sentence. How can I survive? So your brain developed a system to detect these social threats. And these were anything that could get you rejected, humiliated, or judged. Now, this is where things go wrong for you. So when you're about to speak English, and especially in public, your brain doesn't just think, oh, let me form a grammatically correct sentence. No, your brain, and actually that is the fear center in your brain. I forgot how it was called. If there's a psychologist, let me know, how do we call the fear center in our brain? But that fear center screams and it says, wait a minute. If I say something wrong, people are going to judge me. They'll think that I'm dumb. They will think that I don't belong. Or something that most of you usually tell me, they will think that I'm not knowledgeable enough if I make a mistake. Your body simply goes into fight or flight because this is a very high pressure situation. And what does your brain do? Your brain shuts down. It shuts down to that level of thinking that you need at the moment, like, forming sentences fluently. It's just blank. So this is why your mind goes blank. This is why your mind goes blank. It's not because you're bad at English. No. It's because your brain labeled speaking as dangerous. That's why your brain labeled speaking as dangerous. And your brain is trying to protect you because that's the only way it knows how. That is how it's wired. And now you might be thinking, okay, if this is a survival instinct, why does it still happen when I'm in a complete safe situation? For some of you, it might happen every time you're about to speak English. For example, when you're in a meeting, you're safe. Nobody's going to attack you. Nobody's going to do something to you. Or when you go out to order coffee, nobody's going to, kill you or something. You're safe. And still, that gets activated. That anxiety gets activated. Your brain reacts like it's a life or death situation. So why does this happen? This is because of something called the spotlight effect. I don't know if you've heard it, but if you haven't, basically the spotlight effect is when you think, imagine I'm standing and the spotlight, all of the lights are in me. You think that everyone looks at you. Everyone thinks at you. People are constantly over you. They're going to judge you. And I like to call this the me effect. That is the spotlight effect. You think that people are paying attention to you way more than they actually are. And I'm here to tell you that we're so consumed with ourselves, with our own insecurities, that no one is paying attention on your grammar, on your physical look, on anything about you as much as you think they are. You think everyone's analyzing your mistakes. If you say something wrong, if you make a mistake, if your hair is not tied correctly, if your voice sounds robotic. No. Even if they have those thoughts, just for a second, the moment you finish talking, people are going to go out, people are going to continue being in their own insecurities, in their own thoughts about themselves. And I can't remember where I heard this, so I cannot reference it, but I heard someone say, and I shared this with my client the other day, so when you think that people are judging you, And when you think that they are thinking all of these thoughts about your accent, your grammar, whatever it is, generally works for everything, it's actually your thoughts about yourself. You get what I'm saying? So when you think that people are judging you, it's actually, those are your thoughts that you're projecting to the other person. In fact, it doesn't have to be true. It's just your own thoughts. I think they're going to judge me. I think that they think that I have a bad accent. So what we're actually doing is self-sabotaging ourselves. And now let's reverse engineer this. Think about a situation when somebody made a mistake, whether it was speaking or some other mistake. Let's say a native speaker that you know made a mistake when they were speaking. So what happened? Did you think about the mistake all day long? Of course you didn't. Of course you didn't. When someone has an accent and they're not a native speaker, so at the first few seconds, you're kind of like, they have an accent. Maybe you judge them. Okay, it's natural. Everyone judges. We're not going to talk about that. But are you thinking about it for the rest of your day? No. You start focusing on the context, on what they're saying. You're not obsessing over their mistakes. Nobody is. We're only obsessing of our own mistakes, and we need to stop doing that. Your brain does not believe, and your brain overreacts. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of replaying the conversation, of just pinpointing your mistakes. And if this happened multiple times, that's the proof you have. I'm going to make a mistake and my brain will go in overdrive, and I'm just going to keep in the loop of how could I have said that? I know better than that. My English is better than that. Why did I make the mistake? And then it operates in a loop. It just goes over and over and over and over. You go to bed, you still go over and over the conversation because your brain is just, it doesn't know how to react. And after those experiences, it simply makes you afraid to try again. So now that you know how the fear operates, now that you know exactly the reason, let's talk about why is this fear so deeply ingrained in us that it is a bit harder to kind of let go. Because let me tell you, it wasn't always like this. And I need you to stop for a second and think about your childhood. Or think about, if you have children, think about them. Look at them. Think about when you were a child. Were you afraid of making mistakes? No, of course you weren't. You just tried, you failed and tried again and failed and tried again. You didn't really care if you made mistakes. But then school happened, and the school system installed this message into your brain: mistakes equals failure. Mistakes equals failure. Every time you did something wrong, you got corrected. Is this right? Of course it is. Every test where you had mistakes had red marks on it. Or maybe even worse, you got laughed at by your classmates. You were bullied for making mistakes. So over time, your brain made the connection. Speaking up means there is a huge risk I'm going to look stupid. So it's better for me to stay quiet. And this is a connection that is like sealed in your brain. Speaking up means risk, high risk situation. And now, even as an adult, even though you logically know that making a mistake is not the end of the world, like logically, consciously, you know this, but still your brain reacts the same way because it's been trained to. It's been trained to react like this. Trust me, it took me a long time to understand this and to simply be able to detach from that belief so that I can look at this belief in the eyes and say, all right, you're just a belief. I can change you. You're just operating in my subconsciousness when consciously I know it's not the end of the world. So why do I still have these feelings? It took me a long time, but once I understood this on a deep level, trust me, a lot of things started changing. A lot of opportunities started opening up for me. You need to know that, and I'm sure you already know this, that confident speakers make mistakes too, but they don't shrink when they do the mistakes. And that is the difference. You don't feel like a failure when you make mistakes. You don't go into that loop that it's operating like, I will never be good enough. I don't know what to do anymore. That I do a lot, but nothing's changing. No, they're like, okay, it happened. Screw it. Tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing. And that is the difference between somebody that is a confident speaker. Again, nothing to do with your English. They can have an accent, they can have bad pronunciation, it's fine, but they're confident. They're owning it. Even if they make a mistake, it's fine. It's fine. And the others who maybe on a conscious level, on a surface level, they do understand the mistakes, it's not the end of the world, but they are still afraid, they still feel insecure, and that shows up in their energy, and that's how they are showing up in the world, in their communication. All right, so now that you know the real reason why you struggle and why you are afraid of speaking English, how do you fix it? I'm going to tell you exactly what I was doing and exactly what I'm teaching my clients. So the first thing you need to do is to train your brain to feel secure, because right now it does not feel secure. So we're going to work on rewiring your brain. So when you're training your brain to feel secure, there are two ways to do it. The first way is called micro exposure. And what this means is right now your brain is reacting to speaking as it's a high risk. Your brain sees speaking as a high risk. So we need to teach your brain that it's not a high risk to speak. So you need to start speaking in low stakes situations, meaning low pressure. Let's say you are ordering food in English. If you've never done this, start there. If you have never spoken in a meeting, if you're always avoiding, raise your hand and ask a question, even if it's just a simple question. So try doing this very low effort, but still visible that you're able to feel and see the results. Or leave a comment on YouTube. It doesn't even have to be with speaking. Leave a comment on a YouTube video in English. Let's see how you feel after that. So anything that for you is going to be very low effort, very low pressure, but still something that you wouldn't normally do, you go ahead and do this. That's the first step. The second step is something that I did personally, because I'm somebody that when I do something, I like to go all in, and I don't like micro exposure. When I do something, I'm going like all in. And I like to do very big and contradictory stuff from what I'm used to do. And I told you the story when I started to change my lifestyle in terms of my physical appearance and when everything else changed. But basically, I was overweight, and I was sick of being overweight and unhappy, and I decided to change my life. And if you want to watch that video, I'm going to leave the link somewhere over here and also in the description. The video is called How I Got Confident in English. So you can go ahead and watch that. But basically, what I did is I completely went out of my comfort zone, like completely. So I've never done exercise before. None of my family members exercises. And I'm like, I want to change. And I went and started exercising. For you, it may not seem big. For me, it was a complete step out of the comfort zone. So I call this macro exposure. So do things that are completely out of the box that you're currently in. So if this means for you, I don't know, signing up to make a presentation at work and to publicly speak about it, go ahead and do that. Something big, something that will really stretch you. Really stretch you, meaning you're going to put yourself out there big time. And this is the fastest way. So if you want a faster way, go macro and do things that you would never normally do. I like to do this, but some people don't. And that's why I'm always saying it. There are two ways. So if it's very uncomfortable for you and it feels very high pressure and high anxiety, it's fine. You can go ahead micro. So small steps. And I don't want this to be just a video you watch and then go ahead and continue with your life. I want this to be a video you watch and then take the steps. So right now it's a good time. Pause the video, take a piece of paper and write down what it is exactly, like specific examples of what you can do. Come on, don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Go ahead, take some paper, write on your phone specific things that you can do. Okay? Promise me you're going to do it, or write down in the comments all of the things that you can do as micro exposure. Very specific. Give me some examples. Don't tell me speak up more. No. Speak up more where? In which situation? When? Give me timeline. So very specific. And then the rest of the thing that you need to do is go ahead and do it. Go ahead and speak. Step number 2 is to reframe that fear as proof of growth. I've talked about this multiple times. If you want to be confident and if you want to become a more fluent and a better speaker, you've got to have new proof. Because the proof you have so far is that you're not good. Since you're afraid of speaking, the proof that you have so far is obviously negative proof. You don't have enough positive proof. So you need to create new proof. So instead of you fearing mistakes, you need to reframe that as sign of progress. So every time you're like, what if I make a mistake? No, as I said before, that thought comes in, I'm catching it, and I'm like, okay, but what if I present in the best possible way? And then you don't stop there. You reframe the thought, but you don't stop there, because what's going to happen is you're not going to feel connected to that yet. You're not going to feel connected to that thought yet. It's going to be just like a thought that you don't believe in. You're like, what if this helps me communicate better? Or what if this helps me be the best version so far? But I don't feel it. Okay, you're not going to feel it yet. What you need to do next is you need to consciously and intentionally imagine this scenario. And then you go into the scenario and you imagine yourself going into the presentation, speaking with confidence. You know, people asking you questions, you answer the questions. You have this flow in your speech and everything turns out to be well. You make a mistake or two, but you're like, okay, let me start over. Let me start again. And you end the presentation and people are clapping. They're like, wow, that was really good. And you're like, whoa, you need to feel this scenario. And that's how you know that you are going to start reframing those mistakes as proof of growth. I just want to share something that is so dear to me, a quote that I always come back to. And it says, whatever you put your focus on, it keeps growing. So if your focus is on avoiding mistakes, guess what's going to happen? Your fear of mistakes, it's going to keep growing. But if your focus is on growth and making progress and creating new proof that you can, guess what's going to happen? Let me hear it. Exactly. Your proof and your growth is going to expand. But don't take my word for it. This is scientifically proven. Whatever you put your entire focus on, that thing is going to keep growing, because no matter if it's a positive or a negative thing, it's going to keep growing. So choose your focus. Think about this. Every time you have a negative thinking thought about mistakes or accent or whatever it is, catch it, reframe it, and start going into the positive and the good feeling scenario. All right, step number 3 is to build this confidence loop. I like to call it a confidence loop, because right now your loop is not confidence. Your loop is something else, non-confidence loop. So you have the proof, you make this identity shift, and this leads you to fluency. So here's what you need to do. I'm going to give you a task that I always give to all of my clients, is to record yourself every single day. Now, don't be lazy. Don't give me excuses. If you can scroll on Instagram for 30 seconds, you can go ahead, record a 60-second voice recording of yourself giving updates about your day, as if you're giving an update to your boss or to your best friend. So take your phone and start speaking for 60 seconds. That's all you need to do. Just give an update of your day. What was the highlight? What did you do? What happened? And put these recordings in a folder in your phone and keep them. What this will do is it will train your brain, first of all, which is something that you all struggle with, most of you, to normalize hearing your voice. Because most of you come to me and you're like, I really don't like hearing my voice. And I know this because I used to not like hearing my voice until I started loving it. And I'm like, my voice is amazing. So it's going to train your brain to start normalizing your voice, which is amazing. You're going to see real progress over time, and it will rewire your identity from I don't feel comfortable when speaking English, I'm scared, I'm not good at English, to I'm actually becoming more confident. I am actually starting to like myself. I'm actually starting to become this new person, which is exactly what an identity shift is. And once you change your identity, trust me on this, confidence will follow automatically. All right, so let me know in the comments which of these steps are you gonna try, and I highly recommend that you try all of them and you start today, not tomorrow, not on Monday, you start today. Let me know what you think about this. Let's have a conversation. Also, please comment for the sake of the algorithm. I mean, it helps me grow, so help out your teacher. Okay, a final thing that I wanna say is that most of you will never break this cycle because you're just gonna keep waiting until you feel ready. But one thing that I want to share, and I want this thing to stay with you, is that confidence comes from action. It doesn't come before action. Remember this. So you got to take action, and then confidence is going to follow. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. Until the next video, don't forget to stay zen, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.